Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Next Good Hormone Health webinar. Today's topic is lifestyle medicine for patients with endocrine problems. And my good colleague and friend, Eddie Ramirez, is our guest today. So I like to focus on health and wellness. My approach to weight loss is to rule out any endocrine problems such as hypothyroidism, Cushing's syndrome, or growth hormone deficiency that may lead to weight gain. And as a result of their endocrine conditions, either treated or untreated, many of my patients are overweight and feel like crap, excuse my French. So I work on optimizing hormones, but simultaneously I encourage patients to eat healthy and be healthy, consume a low-calorie diet. I often recommend eating a large quantity of vegetables because vegetables are low in calories, they have a lot of nutrition. And I also encourage my patients to move and exercise. I encourage them to get a good night's sleep, to have good mental health, to avoid stress, or at least don't let stress bother you. I like recommending hiking and being out in nature. So today I invited my good friend and colleague, Eddie Ramirez, MD, to go for a deeper dive into the 6 pillars of health to get you to feel better. Okay, take it away, Eddie. I think you're muted, Eddie. There we go.
No, good. Okay, well, welcome everybody. It's a pleasure to be here this evening at this seminar. And I've been in lifestyle medicine for close to 28 years. So I've been since it was a little baby where nobody knew about this. And today, this is where medicine is going as we're trying to fix many of the main problems of medicine by dealing with the root cause of the problem. And that's what we're going to focus on today. We're going to be talking about the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine. You can give me the next one. So a little contact info here for those of you that want to learn more at home. The top link is my research. Just Google Francisco, which is my other name, Francisco Ramirez ResearchGate. You should be able to find all the research that I do. I also have a very active Twitter account, Eddie RD MD, where I motivate you to continue with these positive lifestyle changes. And if you want to come and travel with me around the world, there's that Instagram page, Dr. Eddie Ramirez. Can you give me the next one? So this is one of our patients, classic patient that comes to us. This patient had a severe problem with his weight. 381 pounds was his weight. The patient, even though he was taking 2 different medications for his blood pressure, still his blood pressure was no good, 150/78. And he was taking 1 medication for his diabetes. So what did we do? He did what we're going to talk about today. We were dealing with the root causes of his problem. As he put that in practice, this is a residential program in which he stayed with us. We fed him. There was doctors, there were coaches, there was nutritionists, there was therapists. And throughout 18 days, he did that. And give you the next one. And you can see the end result. In a matter of 18 days, he was able to lose 16 pounds. So his improvement was so much. You know, the team of doctors is following him step by step. We had to stop his blood pressure medication because his blood pressure came down to normal levels. In fact, his end blood pressure was 116/72, no blood pressure medication. A few months later, his fasting glucose was coming to very acceptable levels. His family physician actually decided to stop his metformin. And you can see here, in a matter of 11 months, after continuing those lifestyle changes at home, in parentheses are the European values, you can see his blood pressure, beautiful blood pressure, no medication. Cholesterol, perfect. That's what we want to see, the cholesterol under 150. And the most surprising number, the hemoglobin A1C, on somebody that does not take any type of diabetic medication, that means that that diabetes went into remission. And you can show the next one. And you can see here, in a matter of a year and a half, after losing 141 pounds, and give me the next one, you can see that this patient was able to overcome his problem of obesity. He was able to send his hypertension into remission, and so does his diabetes. We continue to follow up this patient 2-3 years after that, and his hemoglobin A1C actually came down to 5.3 after the second year. It's published in a journal from the American Heart Association called Atherosclerosis, Thrombosis, and Vascular Biology. And this next one, and this is another study that we presented. This one showing how things like cholesterols, they improve quite nicely and quite fast, again, when we deal with the root cause of the problem. And that's what we're going to focus today. Give me the next one. So we have a huge problem of chronic disease today. And the expenditures for healthcare are tremendously. It is the most expensive healthcare program in the whole world. And most of the resources of the expenses for our medical problems are going to what are called chronic diseases. And that's why we need to deal with those chronic diseases. There is no way we can continue spending so much money because the system is going to blow up. We have to deal with the root cause of the problem. Next one. So this is a classic illustration of a problem. Let's suppose that the faucet of the water is broken. If we want to fix that, there are two ways of trying to fix this problem. We can either have the most expensive type of mop in order to pick up that water efficiently because lots of water is coming down on the ground, or we can deal with the root cause of the problem, which happens to be that faucet that is broken. So that is the approach of lifestyle medicine. We could spend a lot of money on the latest medications and procedures and so forth, but we need to fix the problem that is causing in the first place that water to be pouring down in the ground. Next one. So the way that we are doing procedures such as bypass surgeries, a problem with obesity among children, teenagers, so many of them with obesity, diabetes, high blood pressure, some of them, a huge epidemic of fatty liver disease. See, in the past, this was not the way we would see the amount of problems that we are seeing today. And as we're going to be learning today, is because of the way that we are living. Many of these causes are caused that. Sometimes there's a hormonal problem that we need to deal with the hormonal issue in order to fix the issue. Next one. So these are what are called the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine. So when we deal with a problem, we ask the question, what is potentially the problem that is causing this medical issue. For example, it's like if you go driving. If you go driving and the car brakes and stops, we could just focus on the tires. The tires may be the problem in a small percentage of the cases, but what about the motor? What about the transmission? Do we actually have enough gasoline? Did we put enough oil on that motor for things to work properly? See, that is the focus of lifestyle medicine. We ask the question, what potentially could be the problem? Not because the tires stop, that does not necessarily mean that the blame should go on the tires. There could be other problems that we could deal with and then make the whole mechanism to start working properly. Next one. So the issue is that if we could just, this is a published paper from the Archives of Internal Medicine, if we could just encourage people to stop smoking, maintain a healthy weight, eat at least 5 fruits and vegetables a day, and exercise for 30 minutes, in this published paper, they were predicting that we could potentially reduce 80% of the chronic diseases of today. And what happened is that as my professor when I was in medical school used to say, just to walk in a grocery store in America is harmful to your health. The marketing people put the food just there in front of your eyes, the position where the food is located. There's psychologists that are hired, and it's just, everything is just so engineered to tease you and entice you to go in the wrong direction. And the thing of it is that the good news, I'm very glad that you're here tonight, because as you become aware of this, our choices can start become different. Next one. So look at this fascinating study from Mayo Clinic. They said that less than 3% of Americans live what could be considered a healthy lifestyle. And they were considering 4 important factors on those healthy lifestyles: moderate vigorous exercise for at least 150 minutes a week, a diet with a score of at least 40%. We'll talk a little bit more about the diet factors in a minute, and body fat percentage for males under 20%, for females under 30%, and for not smoking. And this is an interesting factor. As I talk to patients, sometimes the patients believe that they're following a good diet, but it is not necessarily a good diet. It may be a good fat that is proposed on the internet and so forth, but may not necessarily be that wholesome diet that we want to follow. We'll talk about that in a minute. Next one. So here is the first pillar of lifestyle medicine. We call it healthful eating. So the goal should be to eat a whole food, plant-based diet. Many of our ancestors, this is the way they used to eat. They had a big field in which they would cultivate all types of foods depending on the region where they were living. And they had, for example, a goat there. Now, they couldn't eat goat every day because they only had one. Only the king, the one that was in charge of the whole town, he had 100 goats. he could kill that goat every day because he had plenty of goats. But the average person could not eat that. So what did our ancestors eat? They ate this. They ate a whole food, plant-based diet. So we need to focus on single ingredient foods. You know, when you go and read the package of ingredients, you see 5, 10, 15 ingredients. Man, it's not the best thing for your health. Minimally processed, what we call real food, and plant-based. In other words, 95% of all my calories should be coming from fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, and nuts. And this is what is called the healthful eating. Now, as I'm presenting to you, I'm presenting to you the very ideal. How much of that ideal you are gonna, establish in your own life? That's up to you. But I think that my job is to tell you what is the very much ideal. Next one. So if you notice, 80% of Americans fail to eat the recommended amounts of fruits and vegetables. So it's interesting that many people think they are doing the right thing, but they're not necessarily doing it. Look at this very interesting NPR poll in which they were showing that 75% of Americans believe that they're eating a healthy diet. And the question in which this poll was based was, how healthy would you consider your eating habits to be? And the reality is, when the researchers found out what the person was really eating, it did not match that response that they were doing. Next one. Second pillar. We call this pillar physical activity. You know, back in the year 2000, my wife and I
Eddie, excuse me, could you
Yes.
summarize again what the recommended amount of fruits and vegetables is?
Yeah, so as we were saying in the previous slide, we want to shoot for at least 5 fruits and vegetables a day, you know, and that's the minimum. If you can eat more, fantastic, you know. So yeah, that's our goal.
Great.
So physical activity, you know, in my wife and I, we spent 3 months in Tanzania back in the year 2000. And to me, it was very interesting because it gave me a little glimpse of how our ancestors used to live. It was a very rural area up in the hills of Tanzania. There was no running water whatsoever. There was no propane. There was no electricity. People ate in a very, very simple way. And just to survive there, people had to do tremendous amounts of exercise. For example, if you wanted to eat, there was not such thing as a grocery store. So every single home had a big piece of land in which they will cultivate beans, pumpkins, chilies, greens, and a bunch of corn. That's what their diet was based on. So they would cultivate there that food, and then they would harvest, and they had to store that to last for the whole year, because if they didn't have enough, they were going to have passed hungry for many months. So they had to work really hard that land. And then there was no running water. So what did they do? You could see them, they put their buckets in their heads and carrying in their hands for miles and miles to a source of water, a river, a lake, or the pump of the town. And then they wanted to cook some food. They had to go with the axe for many miles, cut some piece of wood, and that's how they cook their food. And, I tell some of the patients, I want you to do 30, 40 minutes of exercise a day. Doctor, 30 or 40 minutes, some of them say. For these people there in Tanzania, that would be vacation day, the day that they could only do only 40 minutes of physical activity. They had to do so much physical exercise just to survive. So we need to learn from that we need to be more physically active. Life is too easy today. I don't have to be carrying things. I don't have to be walking all the way to my work. I just take public transport or an Uber or a car. So we need to get the whole type of exercise. We need the aerobic, the one that you're walking or running or swimming. We need some strength training. We have a chronic problem with our backs. We don't do enough exercise with our upper backs, and that's going to create problems later on as we age. We need to work on our flexibility, and we need to work in our balance. One of the biggest risk factors as you get older is if you fall down. That's a big deal. Hips are broken, bones are broken, and then disability can result of that. So we need to focus on that. And it's not about, okay, I'm just going to walk 30 minutes and the whole day I'm just going to be sitting down. No, we need to be physically active throughout the day. Personally, I actually work stand up. That's how I work during my whole day. Next one. So physical activity is a big problem, sadly, in America. So recommendations, somebody between 18 to 64 should be logging in at least 150 minutes, ideally 300. And if you can do more, it's more than welcome. Just this morning, I log in 7 kilometers running around where I live. So only 24% of Americans actually achieve that goal. So start adding little by little, more and more, so that you can reach that. I have myself one of those, Samsung watches that tells me my steps and so forth. That kind of gives me a little motivation. So I know, if I need to do a little bit more walking or more exercise to meet my goals. And 25% of Americans are basically inactive. It's minimum the amount they do of exercise. So try to do fun things together. Go for a walk with your partner. If you have some phone calls to make, go walking and make the phone calls as you walk. Try to find creative ways of adding exercise to your daily living. Next one. Pillar 3, sleep. And this is a huge problem today. Life has too much busyness and too much fun things to do. The Netflix and the internet and the cell phone and the social media, many times robbing the so important time of exercise. So we should be shooting at least 7 hours. Ideally, you should be logging in the 8 hours. And among the things that affect sleep, there's a very important hormone. Here's the good news, bad news. I actually recorded a video about melatonin, and the good news is that video has close to 1.8 million views. You can find that on my YouTube page. The bad news is that it's in Spanish. So let me summarize what I teach there in that video. So stress will block your melatonin. So you need to find useful ways of dealing with your stress. Another robber of sleep is caffeine and alcohol. Both of them block your melatonin. So caffeine actually 7, 8 hours the last time you take caffeine before you go to bed. And so does alcohol. Some people drink alcohol because they say this helps me sleep better. Not necessarily. You may go to sleep, but the deepness of your sleep is not as deep as it should be. So you don't get the most out of your sleep. Also, the timing of your meals. As we teach, you need to eat with the sun. If there's sun, it's time to eat. As soon as the sun sets, it's too late. Don't take food because there's a lot of melatonin that is secreted in your intestine tract. And when you have food in your intestine transitioning, you will block that melatonin, affecting the quality of your sleep. So most of your calories should go early in the day. As the day goes on, less and less food until sunset, no more food. Also, medications. Did you know that if you're taking a beta blocker, there's a published paper about this, a beta blocker will block 99% of your melatonin. I don't like people
Wow.
taking melatonin supplement, but if somebody's taking a beta blocker, they have to take a melatonin supplement. How do you know if you're taking a beta blocker? If it ends in LOL, you're probably taking a beta blocker. Atenolol, metoprolol. If it has LOL at the end, is beta blocker. Watch out. Also, your sleep environment. This is so important. You need to make sure the room is completely dark. You need to make sure that the temperature is lowered. Ideally 65. I just put up a study there on Twitter. They were putting different temperatures and in a big sample of people to try to determine what is the ideal temperature for sleeping. Their conclusion, 63 degrees is the ideal temperature to go sleeping. If it's cold and you have, of course, enough blankets, that actually improves your sleep. Make sure your room is nice and orderly. Even though you have your eyes closed, if there is disorder in your room, it actually is going to affect your quality of your sleep. So, and also as you are getting ready to go to bed, make sure things are more calm. Don't turn on the TV, boom, they killed, 50,000 people in a bomb and blah, blah, blah. Man, who can sleep like that? No news before going to bed. Okay, just things that are nice and calm. Read a book that calms you down and so forth. Next one. Next slide. Yeah, good. So then the recommendation is 7 to 9 hours. It's interesting. If you sleep more than 9 hours, it actually increases your risk of stroke. So sleeping too much also is problematic. In statistics here of America, 1 in 3 adults are not getting enough sleep. And the problem is that those people that are not sleeping enough, it impairs very much their function throughout the day. Also, your risk for burnout and your risk for early death. The least you sleep, the more your risk of an early death. That's why it's a big deal. You need to make sure that you are logging in your sleep. Many times, the brain may be tired, but the body may not necessarily be tired. So make sure you're doing your exercise to have that balance and be able to sleep well. Next one. Manage stress. And for this one, you need to find a way of healthy ways of dealing with your stress. Some people end up taking the wrong types of things. Oh, I'm going to take a little drink because that's going to relax me. That's not a healthy way of dealing with stress. I'm going to turn on a cigarette. That's going to calm me down a little bit. That's not going to work. I have actually done a couple of studies on that subject. We found out that the people that smoke and the people that drink actually have worse levels of anxiety in the long term. So that's just a patch. Why don't we do something like exercise much better? Or if you belong to some sort of, faith type of congregation, synagogue, mosque, go to those places. It's good for you. As you interact with other people, as you meet with a group that meets on a regular basis, a group that asks you, hey, how are you doing? Hey, why don't you come? Let's go and spend some time together, come to my house and we can have a meal together and so forth. That is really, really good. This is a huge issue. I don't have time to talk about this, but this is something that I'm very passionate about. How we are disconnecting ourselves from one to another one. And so people say, but doctor, I have 1,500 friends on my social media. No, you need real friends that you can laugh and spend time together. And that's why belonging to a club or a faith-based organization is good for you. And make sure that you have daily rest, that you have weekly rest, and that you have annual rest. This is fundamental for your mental health. I used to live in Norway. I speak Norwegian because I lived there for many years. And in Norway, the local bank in July will literally close because all the employees would go for vacation. In Norway, the government has special money that as you work, you accumulate, but they won't give you that money unless you take vacation, in order to encourage people to take vacation. So there it was religious behavior, to take vacation. So the whole town will close because people would take on vacation. I believe that is very, very healthy. Next one. So the stress, we need certain levels of stress. Eustress is good, but when stress is overwhelming or where there's not enough stress, that's when I get myself in trouble. And what happened is that stress is mediated by important hormones, and those hormones, when they are being secreted in a chronical way, they create a domino effect that end up affecting other important hormones in the body. So if we want to have that nice level, we have to start dealing in a healthy way with our stress. And this is such an important thing in lifestyle medicine, because you may be eating healthy and you may be trying to do your exercise, but if the stress is on board, then you are going to get yourself in really big trouble. And another factor is very connected with this, next slide, is relationships. Relationships are very much linked with stress. And this is something that Daniel Goleman from Harvard University has studied quite a bit. And he proposes a factor by the name of emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is your ability to get along with others. So we need sometimes to put aside our pride and ask for forgiveness, ask for, my feelings a little bit aside so that I can connect with others and so forth. We need to learn to connect, and especially today in America, this is such a huge problem. As politics have us so polarized, that's not good. That is not good. I mean, is it worth it that I'm gonna be, fighting with my dad just because he believes, this is the way that you should be politically, and I believe in my opinion, it's not worth it. Put aside your pride and say, okay, look, let's agree to disagree. Let's not be, disagreeable. How long are you going to have your father? The day that he passes away, you're going to be lamenting, man, I wish I could spend, more time with my dear ones, and gone, so leave the today and put priority in your relationships. In Japan, one of the factors they found for longevity is something they call the moai. The moai are groups of friends that hang together in the good times and the bad times. So find ways of connecting with others. In America, most people don't know their neighbor. They say hi, that's it. Do you actually, have you actually invited him to come and, have a meal together and so forth? Try to connect with the people around you. It's good for us to be connected. And the irony, you can live in a city like Los Angeles with millions of people, and there are so many lonely people in the Los Angeles area. That's something very, very sad, and it shouldn't be. Try to find, again, some faith-based group or a club, a meetup of a similar interest, something that you meet on a regular basis. It's good for you. It will actually help you with your stress. And as we talk with other people, the thoughts change. To me, it's very interesting. A patient that has a certain problem, that is just lonely, it's going to start getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. I encourage them, you need to volunteer. You need to find a group where there's other people. As you're with other people, your thinking changes as a result of that. Next one. So social connections, we are made to have connections. It's very interesting, when they get somebody hostage somewhere there, in the some other country and so forth, and they finally get released, and as they ask them, the reporters, when you were there by yourself, being taken hostage, who did you, or what things were you missing? Were you missing your house? Were you missing your Corvette? What were you missing? What is the answer? My loved ones, isn't it? That's where I really, really miss. I wish I could have been there with my loved ones. So put your priorities in place. And that's why social relationships is as important as eating healthy, as stopping smoking, as exercise. In fact, many times our relationships determine if we're going to eat healthy. Make sure that you're hanging around the right crowd. Some people, that like to, do intemperate things may not necessarily be the most, positive influence in your life. Find people that are healthy minded and hang around with them. It's good for you, because if that social relationship factor is not there, then loneliness, and then people end up self-medicating with food to try to deal with that loneliness and so forth. So yeah, it's a whole domino that starts in the wrong direction when we are not socially connected in the proper way. Next one. Avoiding tobacco and other harmful substances. So the official position of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine is that you should eliminate things that are addictive, are not good for you in lifestyle medicine. It's as simple as that. For example, I have never seen a patient addicted to broccoli. If I find that a patient, has a broccoli allergy, and I tell him, look, no more broccoli, the patient doesn't say, oh no, broccoli, no, don't take away my broccoli, But what about if we talk about something like caffeine Oh, no, caffeine, no, don't take away the caffeine, See, because it's addictive, it tells you that stuff is not good for you. So watch out for that. So addictions, that's the factor of addiction. This is a principle by the name of temperance. Temperance means moderate use of the good things and abstinence from the harmful things. And then watch out for pollutants and chemicals. How can we reduce those pollutants? Actually, a very good question that was asked. So one of the best ways to reduce your exposure to pollutants is to switch to a whole food plant-based diet. There is something that is called exponential toxin. So toxins increase as we go up in the food chain. I actually have presented a research at the toxicology meeting. It's a top toxicology meeting in the world, the SOT, the Society of Toxicology. And that's exactly where they study this subject. So if you're able, for example, to cut your animal products, man, you cut tremendously the amount of toxins. I just put that study this week. It just came out this week. Let me give you an example. They found out that eating any fish that comes from waters of any of the rivers, lakes, or oceans in America, eating one fish is equivalent at drinking polluted with toxins water for a whole month. That is how polluted is there. Go to my Twitter and find the study. It's there. I just put it this week. So again, as we go up in the food chain, we start exposing ourselves more and more to toxins. There was also a very interesting study they did. They were studying the milk, mother's milk, and they found out females that are on a whole food plant-based diet, their levels of toxicity are much, much less compared to females that partake of plenty of animal products. Again, because animals have fat and lots of those toxins are stored there. See, a blade of grass, think about this. A blade of grass may have, a little farm there next to it, and then a little bit of the insecticides and so forth are deposited in that blade of grass. So how many blades of grass, for example, a cow eats in his lifetime? Man, it's millions and millions and millions that they have to eat the whole day. They spend eating those cows. So a little bit of toxin like that, exponentially, you're going to end up with tremendous amounts of pollutants secondary to that. So yeah, we could talk a lot about that. If you're interested in the subject, just Google biomagnification. That is the word that is used in ecology to study that exponential increase in toxins. Next one. So substance abuse, one of the challenges, as I was mentioning, is that people try to deal with that emptiness in their life, with that loneliness in their life, with those relationship problems in their life with the wrong way, with addictions, with alcohol, with drugs, and so forth. So don't do that. As I tell my patients, this is like an octopus that has 8 arms, and the octopus is going to tell you, hey, you're a free person. You can take, any of these addictive things. Nothing is going to happen to you. And you grab one of those arms of that octopus, and before you know it, you have 8 arms around you. Watch out for that. Or you may not necessarily have an addictive type of relationship at the moment, but what happens if something bad goes in your life, a divorce, a death of somebody very dear to you, if that's the way you usually deal with your stress, you may lay on that addictive behavior to try to help you with that stressful situation, and you can end up in a very unbalanced situation. And now addiction will start becoming a reality and so forth. So watch out for that. Also, certain legal prescribed drugs can be very addictive. One of them are the benzodiazepines. We don't like those benzodiazepines because of that addictive relationship that they cause. And so those opioid medications for pain, yeah, that's a whole topic. Actually have done research on that subject. I have a few studies on that subject and how it's able to be overcome as you make the right lifestyle changes and start adjusting, your overall lifestyle. Next one. So this is a very interesting study in which they were showing how when you compare lifestyle changes compared to metformin, compared to placebo, so the most healthy way of decreasing your risk for diabetes actually happened to be lifestyle. That is what we need to do. And now, as we saw those 6 pillars, now you can see why. Because we're dealing with the root cause of disease. We can decrease in this study 58% of the new cases of diabetes by changing the lifestyle. Next one.
Eddie, we got about 10 more minutes. Maybe you want to jump
Okay.
to some of the action ones.
Okay. So I'll just talk about this one, and then we go quickly to the other ones on the diet. So this is Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn. I'm actually co-author with him in a nutrition book, by the way, that is called Rethink Food, demonstrating how atherosclerosis of the heart, this is what the #1 killer of Americans, it's reversible in many of the cases by switching to a whole food plant-based diet. Very strict diet that he follows, completely 100% vegetarian, no caffeine, no alcohol. And here it is. This is the published paper, 32 months on that plant-based diet without cholesterol-lowering medication, was able to reverse the atherosclerosis. And in this paper, multiple studies are published. Let's go on the next one. So let's just go quickly through the nutrition side of things. Next one. So that's what we call food as medicine. Let's eat in a way that we are able to help reverse many of the health problems. Next one. So you can see here that we are eating 25% more calories today than 1970. Why is that? Because of processed foods. So watch out for that. Give me the next one. And one of the factors is soft drink consumption. Marketing wants to convince you that you have to have, those soft drinks in order to have that good health. You do not need those soft drinks. In fact, the least, the better. Okay, so watch out for that. Next one. And we also are actually eating more and more meat, even though there's a trend to try to make people understand that meat may not necessarily be the best food. And what happened is that meat comes accompanied with saturated fat and cholesterol, which increases your risk for heart attacks and strokes. Again, in the top 3 killers of Americans. So that's why, as we switch to a whole food plant-based diet, we will see a reduction of those factors that we're talking about a minute ago. Next one. And one factor is cheese. So this is the thing. just by looking at a food, you can see if the fat is healthy or not. So fats that are liquid at room temperature tend to be healthier. Watch out because there are still, excess calories there. But fats that are room temperature solid are not good for you. That's where you have your Crisco, that's where you have your lard, and that's where you have your coconut oil. Now, cheese is 80% fat. Is cheese solid or liquid? Cheese is solid, which means it's saturated fat. So this is Harvard. Next one. This is the Harvard Healthy Plate. This is what they promote as healthy food, which is whole grains, vegetables, fruits, and a healthy protein. And by healthy protein, we talk about legumes, which are your beans, lentils, garbanzos, tofu, and so forth. Next one. So this is what is called the SAD diet, the standard American diet. Notice how very small amount is actually plant foods, 25% animal foods. That is too much. That is way too much. And 63% processed foods. See, this type of eating is going to take you to your grave early, and I can assure you, you're going to end up with a chronic disease. This is not the way to eat. Next one. So what we need to do, we need to decrease our processed foods, we need to decrease our animal foods, and we need to increase our whole food plant-based diets. So our vegetables, our fruits, our legumes, our whole grains, our nuts and seeds, that's what should fill the majority of my plate. Next one. So the way to eat these healthy foods is, as Michael Pollan teaches, he says, eat foods, mostly plants, but not too much. That is the simple guideline of how to eat healthy. Eat real food. So real food is when we cut down all those highly processed foods and we eat food as more natural as possible. Next one. So that's what we need to be eating. For example, look at Wonder Bread. Look at how many ingredients that bread has. It's too many. That stuff is not good for you. Next one. So processed foods are foods that have been refined too much. Watch out for them. We need to cut those processed foods off our plates. Next one. And the reason why they do that is because that extends the shelf life of the product. They can keep it there for 6 months, a year, and so forth. And it's good for economy, the people selling it, but it's not good as a person that is eating it. Next one. So instead of that, let's eat real food, whole food, plant-based diet. Next one. And the carbs, sometimes people hear carbs, bad, not necessarily. Processed carbs, no good. Cookies, sodas, sugary cereals, refined grains, those are bad carbs. They don't have fiber. They remove a lot of their nutrition. Instead, let's focus at good carbs, a good whole grain like the Ezekiel type of bread, green vegetables, legumes, fruits. Those are carbs, but those are good carbs. Let's focus on those. Next one. And quality over quantity. Next one. So in closing, so what we need to do, we need to eat a plant-based diet that most of my plate is filled with vegetables, fruits, whole grains like oats, like quinoa, and so forth, legumes like beans, lentils, garbanzos, peas, and so forth, the whole family, roots and tubers eaten together with high fiber foods, um, fungi, your mushrooms, and so forth, nuts and seeds, and herbs and spices. You know, I've been eating like this for 28 years. And did you know what? Last year, I actually ran a race and finished first place from the whole race. So that tells me that probably I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, you know. So as you can see, we need to make those right choices, and we can overcome many of those potential pitfalls. Sometimes it takes education, and let's go and find recipes in the internet. Let's find groups and people that are cooking like this so they can encourage us. So eat your fiber, eat your foods that have plenty of water and lots of oxidants and phytonutrients. So I don't know if we want to do some questions, Dr. Freeman.
Yeah, let me just share the end here. It was a great job, Dr. Ramirez, really good. The talk will be posted.
And there's also I put resources there.
Right.
You're going to put there. That's right. So these are excellent resources online. So you have the Plantrition project. A friend of mine, Dr. Scott, he is the one that runs that. It's an annual meeting. Sign up to that meeting. It is fantastic. There's also the Forks and Knives documentary. You can find that on your Netflix, and I give you that as a homework. There's also Dr. McDougall, also somebody that I know personally. He has excellent resources, lots of videos online if you just Google. And there's also the Central for Nutritional Studies. They have this 7-day Kickstart. Just Google it and you can sign up for free. And there's also the 21-day Vegan Kickstart. It's also a free program for 21 days. It'll tell you all the food that you need to be eating, all the recipes and so forth. And Michael Greger, also, he's co-author with me in the book Rethink Food. He has what is called the Daily Dozen. These are 12 foods you should be eating every day in order to get, the optimal nutrition. There's even an app you can download, so you can, click there your 12 foods in a day.
That's great. So the talk will be posted at Good Hormone Health in a couple of days. Please visit us on our Good Hormone Health. My niece Tiffany's on the call today. She set up TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram pages. Please visit them. And let's open up to questions. You can use the chat or mute yourself. So PK said, do you have tips on identifying pollutants in everyday life? Any research publications you recommend?
Yeah, so as I was mentioning, we can decrease quite a bit of them by switching to a whole food plant-based diet. I'm going to recommend you a website. It's called nutritionfacts.org. Man, it's fantastic. Facts is in FACTS, nutritionfacts.org. Go there and put pollutants there. You'll find plenty of research there, evidence-based research. Michael Greger, what he does is summarizes in 3 to 5 minutes an interesting topic, so that we can have that wholesome nutrition that we need and so forth.
Great, thank you. So PK asked, do you recommend personal genetics-based guidelines based diets? I'll answer that first and then you can add in. I would say no. I looked into this. I was going to be like a sponsor of one. And basically, no matter what your genetics was, they sort of recommended the same thing. So I think what Dr. Ramirez said is basically a good program for everybody, regardless of the genetics. Dr. Ramirez, do you agree?
Yes, actually, the famous book about the different blood types and what diet you're supposed to eat, sadly, that is has been proven that is quackery. In fact, go to Nutrition Facts and look for it. There's an interesting paper that was published on the subject.
Great. Judy says, my grandparents ate well and exercised, yet now we don't, but our life expectancy is higher now, partially because we have other medical advances. But, you know, I think if we did the diet and exercise, we would even more so. By the way, I do exercise daily and I've been a vegetarian. Great job, Judy. You are superb, a great example.
Great.
PK said,
actually, just to add, it's very interesting. If you go to an old cemetery, you're going to see that there were two groups of people. There were children that were dying, and there were very, very elderly people that were dying. So what happened is that child mortality was very high. Today we may be living longer, but sometimes it's with chronic diseases. What in the old days, you know, people were still active and so forth. So that's the trend that we want to change. Go ahead.
okay, so also is microbiome-based food choices scientific?
Yes, as you switch to a whole food plant-based diet, one of the things that stimulate the growth of that right type of bacteria in my intestines is a high fiber food with variety. This is something that we're missing in our culture. People eat fruit, but it's just orange and banana. You know, go to the market. There is so many different types of fruits and vegetables. Use variety. Don't just eat the same things, because if you just eat those limited type of foods, you stimulate only the growth of certain small spectrum of bacteria that are beneficial for you. So you want to eat variety, different types of food, stimulate different types of those good bacteria.
Do you recommend a keto diet?
Not necessarily. Keto diet helps you lose weight. There's no question about it. But when we take blood samples, urine samples of somebody following a keto diet, what that tells me is that the person actually is getting sicker and sicker and sicker. So you increase your risk of heart disease, you increase your risk of stroke, you increase your risk of cancer. So not the best philosophy. Go to that website, nutritionfacts.org, put there keto if you want to see the latest research about the subject, and you will see how the evidence is very, very clear about that.
So I recommend a high vegetable diet. Mostly eat vegetables, fill up on vegetables so you're not hungry for anything else. So the keto does recommend that a lot of times, which is good, but they have too much fat and too much meat in it. So if you can do like a keto diet with low fat and low meat and a lot of vegetables, you're sort of doing what I recommend. PK asks, is there some low-cost hormone test that one can frequently test before becoming a patient? I would say probably not. The tests like the salivary cortisols by companies like ZRT, they're not at all reliable. They're not worth the paper they're written on, basically. I think it's best to, just see your doctor and then let the doctor direct what kind of testing to do. We'll close with Sharon's question. What about probiotics? Do you recommend daily probiotic supplements for gut health?
Not necessarily something that you need. Think about those probiotics like seeds that you put in the ground. Once the seeds are there, the important thing is not to keep putting seeds, but to keep those plants from growing and being healthy by stimulating. That's the analogy for my bacteria in my gut. So by eating that high fiber food, you're stimulating the growth of those good bacteria. And it's interesting, the bad bacteria that are in your gut will start to disappear. Your goal should be ideally 35 grams of fiber a day. So I give you that homework. Analyze how much fiber you eat. Just Google, how much is in my oatmeal, how much is in my apple, how much is in my bread, how much is in the soup I ate. Do the mathematics and see how far you are from that 35 grams of fiber a day. And if you can do that, I'm telling you, you're going to have the most healthy biome that you can get.
Great. Janet says the China study by T. Colin
Yep.
Campbell is an exceptional book about diet and longevity. I read it. I thought there was too much on correlations and not enough on causality, and it didn't really address the issue of poultry. It was just really about red meat, but it was good, interesting. It was good. I did look at it. No. Thank you, Janet. Heidi says thank you. Okay, well, the talk will be posted in a couple of days on goodhormonehealth.com. Maybe if Eddie and Tiffany can stay on the call, we can do a little podcast on this. And thank you, everybody, for joining. We'll see you guys later.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Great
Nice
job,
to
Eddie.
meet you.
Thank you. Very good.
Mm-hmm.